Tom was a quiet human guide on a distant world, hired to help alien settlers cross wild lands. He had arrived on the planet many years ago, not because he dreamed of adventure, but because work was needed and he had little to return to. His home world was crowded and loud, full of rushing people and endless noise. This place was the opposite. The sky stretched wide and pale, and the land seemed to breathe slowly as if it was alive and thinking. The settlers trusted Tom because he spoke little and watched everything. He never rushed them, never raised his voice, and never promised safety where there was none. He simply walked ahead and showed the way. That was enough. On this planet, honesty mattered more than comfort. The caravan moved at a steady pace across rolling ground covered in tall grass. The grass shimmered with soft colors that changed when light passed through it. Tom had learned not to stare too long. Some things here reacted to attention. He kept his eyes forward, his senses open, and his steps even. Each footstep was careful. The land could be kind, but it could also turn cruel without warning. Among the settlers traveled a mother named Clara and her twin children, Ivy and Noah. They were not human, but their shapes were close enough that Tom could read their emotions. Clara walked with calm strength, though her eyes never stopped moving. She watched the sky, the grass, the people around her, and most of all, her children. Ivy and Noah stayed close to her sides. They were curious but quiet, holding hands as they walked. The twins were special. Tom did not know the details, but he knew enough to be careful. Other settlers gave them space and spoke with respect when Clara passed. Some lowered their heads. Others placed a hand on their chest in a sign of honor. Tom noticed these things and stored them away in his mind. Knowledge was a guide's best tool. The journey had started 2 days ago from a small landing site where old ships rested like tired animals. From there, the path led into open land that few traveled. The settlers hoped to reach a valley where water flowed year-round and the soil could support life. It was a chance at a new beginning. Tom had guided others along parts of this route before, but never this far and never with children so young. At first, the land felt normal. Strange but normal for this world. The air was thick but breathable. The ground shifted underfoot but held firm. Sounds filled the distance. Insects clicked and hummed. Wind moved through the grass in slow waves. Tall shapes in the distance turned their heads as the caravan passed, then returned to stillness. Tom watched them carefully but felt no danger. As time passed, the feeling changed. Tom could not say when it began. There was no sudden sound, no clear sign. It was like the land held its breath. The insects faded first. One moment they filled the air, the next they were gone. The wind slowed, then stopped. Even the grass seemed less alive, standing stiff and unmoving. Tom slowed his steps without meaning to. His hand rested near the small scanner at his side, though it showed no warning signs. The device could read heat, movement, and energy shifts, but it could not read intent. Tom relied on something older than machines. His instincts stirred, sharp and uneasy. He glanced back at the caravan. The settlers noticed his change in pace and slowed as well. No one spoke. They had learned to read him. Clara met his eyes across the distance. There was a question there, unspoken but clear. Tom gave a small nod, signaling caution. Clara drew Ivy and Noah closer. The twins looked around, their eyes wide, sensing the shift even if they did not understand it. The silence deepened. Tom knelt and pressed his hand against the ground. It was warmer than before, not enough to burn, but enough to feel wrong. A faint vibration traveled through his palm, like something moving far below. He stood slowly. His heart beat harder, but his face stayed calm. Panic helped no one. "This land feels tense," he said quietly to the nearest settlers. His voice sounded too loud in the still air. One of them swallowed and nodded. Another tightened the strap of their pack. Clara stepped closer, her voice low and steady. "Is it dangerous?" "I don't know yet," Tom answered. "But it is watching us." That was the best way he could describe it. The land was aware. Not alive like a person but alert. As if their presence had been noticed and measured. The caravan moved again, closer together now. Tom adjusted the route slightly, guiding them toward a line of stone ridges rising ahead. High ground offered safety and vision. He chose his path carefully, avoiding areas where the grass grew too thick or the ground dipped too low. Shadows stretched longer as the light shifted, though the sun remained high. Ivy stumbled once, distracted by a strange shape half hidden in the grass. Tom was there before she fell, steadying her with a gentle hand. She looked up at him, surprised, then smiled softly. Noah watched closely, his grip on her hand tightening. Tom nodded to them both, then moved on. He did not want them to fear him. Fear lingered. As they climbed toward the stone ridges, the air grew heavier. Breathing took more effort, Sweat formed along Tom's neck despite the cool light. His thoughts sharpened. Every sense reached outward, searching for signs. He listened for sounds that were not there. He watched for movement that did not come. Behind them, far in the distance, something shifted. Tom felt it more than he saw it. A ripple passed through the grass, spreading outward like a wave. It stopped, then moved again, closer this time. Still no sound followed it. That silence was worse than any roar. Tom raised his hand, signaling the caravan to stop. They froze in place. He scanned the horizon. Nothing stood out, yet his chest tightened. He had guided many groups through danger, but this felt different. This felt planned. Clara stepped beside him, her voice barely above a whisper. "What is coming?" Tom took a slow breath. "I don't know," he said. "But whatever it is not alone." The words settled heavily between them. Ivy and Noah looked up at the adults, sensing fear now. Ivy leaned into Clara's side. Noah's eyes followed Tom, studying him as if trying to understand why the human did not run. Tom met his gaze for a moment. There was no fear in Tom's eyes, only focus. Noah seemed to relax just a little. The ripple in the grass came again, closer still. Tom could feel it in his legs now, a faint trembling through the ground. He stepped forward, placing himself slightly ahead of the caravan. It was an old habit. A guide faced the danger first. Whatever waited beyond the ridge had not revealed itself yet, but Tom knew one thing with quiet certainty. This journey had crossed an unseen line. The land was no longer simply wild. It was hostile, and it was testing them. Tom tightened the straps of his pack and adjusted his stance. He did not draw a weapon. Not yet. There was still time to observe, to choose. He glanced back once more at the settlers, at Clara, at Ivy and Noah standing close together. "We stay calm," he said softly. "We move when I say. And we protect each other." No one argued. In the deep silence of the wild land, those simple words became a promise. The silence broke without warning. One moment the land stood still, holding its breath. The next, the ground seemed to wake in anger. The tall grass bent and split as dark shapes rushed forward in waves. They moved fast and low, their bodies hard to see but easy to feel. The earth shook under their charge, and the calm sky felt suddenly too close. Tom reacted before thought could slow him down. He shouted for the caravan to move toward the stone ridges. His voice cut through the fear, sharp and clear. The settlers obeyed at once. Panic spread, but training and trust pushed them forward. Packs bounced. Feet slipped. Voices cried out in fear. The creatures came from multiple directions. They did not roar or scream. They rushed in silence, guided by instinct and hunger. Their forms were rough and uneven, shaped by the land itself. Some leapt through the grass. Others crawled low, using the ground as cover. Tom could not count them. There were too many. He moved backward as he guided the settlers, keeping his eyes on the approaching shapes. His scanner lit up with warnings now, flashing signals that came too late to be useful. He shut it off and trusted his eyes. "Stay together," he shouted. "Do not stop." Clara ran with Ivy and Noah close at her sides. She held one hand out, keeping them balanced as the ground shifted. Her face was tight with fear, but she did not scream. She focused on her children and the path ahead. The first wave hit the back of the caravan. A settler cried out as something struck their pack, sending them to the ground. Others stumbled as panic broke their line. The tight group split into smaller clusters, each trying to survive. Tom turned and ran toward the fallen settler, pulling them up and pushing them forward. "Go," he ordered. "Do not look back." The sound of rushing bodies filled the air now. The creatures moved around the caravan, testing its edges, pressing inward. Dust and grass filled Tom's lungs as he fought to keep the group moving. He glanced toward the ridges. They were still too far. Then he heard it. A sharp cry, small and frightened. Tom's head snapped around. Through the chaos he saw Clara stumble. A sudden shift in the ground sent her to one knee. Ivy slipped from her grasp. Noah reached for her, but another settler collided with him, knocking him sideways. In seconds the twins were separated from the main group. "Clara!" Tom shouted. She scrambled to her feet, turning in a panic. She reached out, but the moving crowd pulled her away. Creatures pressed in between her and the twins, cutting off the path. She screamed their names, her voice breaking as fear took hold. Ivy stood frozen, eyes wide. Noah struggled to his feet, searching for his sister. The space between them and safety grew larger with every heartbeat. Tom did not hesitate. He shoved the settler he was helping toward the ridge. "Run," he shouted. "Do not stop." Then he turned back. He ran straight into the chaos. The ground shook as the creatures closed in. Tom moved fast but steady, keeping low, using the grass as cover. He reached Ivy first, scooping her up without slowing. She clung to him, trembling but silent. Her eyes searched for Noah. "I've got you," Tom said, his voice calm. "Hold on." Noah was only a few steps away, but the path between them crawled with danger. Tom set Ivy down behind a fallen stone, placing himself between her and the creatures. "Stay here," he said. "Do not move." Ivy nodded, fear shining in her eyes. Tom ran again, every muscle burning. A creature lunged from the grass, but Tom rolled aside, coming up with dirt on his face and fire in his chest. He reached Noah and grabbed his arm, pulling him close. "Noah, listen to me," Tom said quickly. "Stay with me." Noah nodded, gripping Tom's sleeve with surprising strength. Tom guided him back to Ivy, pushing them together behind the stone. The twins held each other tightly, shaking but alive. Around them, the caravan had nearly reached the ridges. Clara fought against the pull of the group, trying to break free. She saw Tom standing alone between the twins and the swarm. Her heart dropped. "Tom," she screamed. Tom heard her, but he did not look back. He raised his arms wide, making himself visible. The creatures shifted their focus. Their movement changed, flowing toward him like water finding a crack. He backed slowly toward the twins, positioning himself as a shield. He picked up a length of broken stone from the ground, gripping it with both hands. It was heavy and rough, but it would do. The first creature rushed him. Tom struck the ground in front of it, sending up a burst of dust and debris. The creature veered away, confused. Another came from the side. Tom stepped into its path, forcing it to change direction. He did not try to defeat them. He only tried to delay them. Seconds stretched into long moments. The creatures pressed closer. Tom's arms ached. His breath came hard and fast. Sweat burned his eyes. Still he stood. Behind him, Ivy and Noah watched in silence. They did not cry. They did not run. Something in Tom's stance told them this was their safest place. From the ridge, settlers turned back in horror. Some wanted to run to help, but fear held them in place. Clara fought her way free, but two others held her back, knowing she would not survive if she went alone. Tom felt a sharp pain as something struck his leg. He stumbled but did not fall. He adjusted his stance, planting his feet deeper into the soil. "This ends with me standing," he muttered through clenched teeth. He used the terrain, stepping onto higher ground, forcing the creatures to approach from narrow angles. He watched their patterns, their timing. They rushed in waves, then pulled back, then rushed again. Each time, Tom met them with movement and noise, never letting them reach the twins. Time lost meaning. At last, a loud sound broke through the chaos. A deep hum rolled across the land. The creatures hesitated, their movement faltering. From the ridge, emergency flares burst into the sky, flashing bright light. The settlers had reached safety and called for help. The creatures pulled back, confused and unsettled by the change. Tom sank to one knee, breathing hard. His hands shook, but he stayed upright. He turned and looked at the twins. "You did good," he said softly. Ivy reached out and touched his arm. Noah nodded, his eyes filled with awe. From the ridge, Clara broke free and ran toward them as help finally arrived. Tom stood once more, placing himself between the twins and the last shadows in the grass, ready in case the land chose to test him again. Tom stood alone. The twins were behind him, pressed close together in the shallow space between broken stone and hard earth. Ivy's small hands clutched Noah's arm. Noah stood slightly in front of her, though he was no stronger. Both of them watched Tom with wide, unblinking eyes. They did not cry. Fear had taken a quiet shape inside them, heavy and still. In front of Tom, the land moved. The grass bent and shifted as countless beasts circled just beyond clear sight. They did not rush all at once now. They waited. They learned. Their bodies were shaped low and wide, built for speed and force. Their eyes reflected the dull light, small points of cold focus. They smelled the air, tasting fear and effort. Tom rolled his shoulders once, slowly. Pain spread through his body like fire under the skin. His leg throbbed where he had been struck earlier. His arms felt heavy, as if they no longer fully belonged to him. His breath came hard, pulling deep from his chest. He did not step aside. He adjusted his stance, placing one foot slightly back, grounding himself. The ground here was uneven, scattered with stone and shallow dips. That was good. It forced the beasts to slow, to choose their steps. Speed was their strength. Tom would not give it to them. He picked up another piece of stone, smaller than the last, and weighed it in his hand. He did not plan to throw it far. He planned to throw it smart. The first beast moved. It rushed forward in a low charge faster than before. Tom did not meet it head-on. He stepped to the side at the last moment, slamming the stone into the ground near its head. The sudden impact sent a sharp sound through the air. The beast flinched, its movement breaking just enough for Tom to strike again, this time against its side. The beast stumbled and pulled away, not wounded but shaken. Tom exhaled slowly. He watched the others shift. They learned quickly. They spread wider, trying to come at him from more than one direction. Tom backed toward higher ground, careful not to turn his back. His heel caught a stone, but he recovered, tightening his balance. Behind him, Ivy whispered something to Noah. Tom did not hear the words, but he heard the calm in her voice. It gave him strength he did not expect. The next rush came in pairs. Tom moved constantly now. He never stayed still. He stepped up onto stone, then down into a dip, forcing the beasts to follow his path. He kicked loose dirt into their faces. He slammed stone against stone, making sharp noise that confused their timing. He shouted, not in fear but in command, using his voice as a weapon. Every movement cost him. His arms burned. His chest ached. His vision blurred at the edges. Still he did not step aside. Time stretched thin. The beasts came again and again. Some struck at him, leaving bruises and shallow cuts. One knocked him to the ground. For a single breath the world spun. The sky turned sideways. Dirt filled his mouth. Tom rolled before the next strike could land. He forced himself up, pain screaming through his leg. He placed himself back in position, wide and firm. Not today, he muttered. The twins were still there. Still safe. Tom used the land as if it were part of him. He remembered every rise and fall, every stone and crack. He led the beasts where they stumbled. He blocked narrow paths with his body, forcing them to approach one at a time. When they hesitated, he advanced, taking space, reminding them he was not prey. The beasts grew restless. They were many but they were not united. Hunger drove them, not purpose. Tom saw it in their movement. They wanted an easier path. He became that path's wall. His strength faded but his will did not. Every time his body begged him to fall back, his mind pushed forward. He thought of nothing beyond the next step, the next breath, the space between him and the twins. At some point he stopped feeling the pain clearly. It dulled into a deep ache, constant and distant. His world narrowed to motion and balance. He no longer counted the beasts. He only counted moments. Behind him, Ivy pressed her forehead against Noah's shoulder. Noah stood taller now, his fear turning into something else. Trust. He watched Tom not as a stranger but as something solid, something unbreakable. The beasts rushed once more, louder now, closer together. Tom roared and charged forward. The sound surprised even him. It was raw and full, tearing from deep inside. The beasts faltered just for a second. That second mattered. Tom struck the ground hard, sent dust and stone into the air and forced them back again. His arms shook when he stopped. His vision darkened at the edges. He knew he could not keep this up forever. Still he did not step aside. A deep sound rolled across the land, low and wide. It was not from the beasts. It came from far away, echoing through the ground. The beasts froze, their heads lifting. Their attention shifted. Tom felt it too. Oh. The beasts pulled back slowly, uncertain. Some retreated into the grass. Others lingered, watching before turning away. The land began to breathe again. Wind returned in small movements. The grass stirred. Tom stood until the last shadow faded. Only then did his knees give way. He fell forward onto one hand, catching himself before he collapsed fully. His breath came in broken pulls. His whole body trembled. Dirt clung to his skin. Blood mixed with sweat. Behind him, small hands touched his back. "Thank you," Ivy whispered. Tom closed his eyes for a moment, then pushed himself upright again. He turned to face the twins, forcing a tired smile onto his face. "You're safe," he said simply. He stayed standing until help arrived, until the land was quiet, until there was nothing left between the twins and the world but open ground. Only then did he allow himself to rest. The sound came first, low and steady, rolling across the land like distant thunder. Tom heard it through the ache in his bones and the slow pounding of his heart. He lifted his head, blinking through sweat and dust. Shapes appeared on the ridge above, dark against the pale sky. Lights followed, steady and bright, cutting through the fading shadows of the grass. Help had arrived. The twins noticed it at the same time. Ivy let out a small breath she had been holding for too long. Noah's shoulders lowered just a little. The land felt different now. The tight pressure in the air eased as if the world itself had decided to let go. Tom tried to stand straighter but his body refused. His legs shook and he leaned heavily on the stone beside him. Pain rushed back all at once, sharp and clear. He welcomed it. Pain meant he was still here. Voices carried down from the ridge. Human voices and alien voices mixed together, urgent and loud. Figures moved quickly, spreading out, checking the ground, watching for any sign of danger. The beast did not return. Whatever signal the rescue team had brought was enough to drive them away. Clara broke free from the group the moment she saw the twins. She ran. Her steps were uneven, her breath short, but she did not slow. She reached Ivy and Noah and dropped to her knees, pulling them into her arms. She held them tightly as if the world might try to steal them again. Her voice shook as she spoke their names over and over, words spilling out in a rush of relief and fear and love. Ivy pressed her face into her mother's shoulder. Noah wrapped his arms around both of them. For the first time since the attack, they cried. Tom watched from where he stood, giving them space. He felt something warm settle in his chest, something deeper than relief. He had done what he set out to do. They were alive. That was enough. Clara looked up then and saw him. Her eyes widened as she took in his condition. Dirt and blood marked his clothes. Bruises darkened his skin. He stood only by force of will, one hand gripping stone, the other hanging loose at his side. She stood slowly, guiding the twins behind her, and walked toward him. Tom straightened as best he could. "They're safe," he said quietly, as if she did not already know. Clara stopped in front of him. For a moment she said nothing. Her eyes moved over him, taking in every mark, every sign of what he had endured. Her hands trembled. Then she did something Tom did not expect. She knelt. It was a deep, formal motion, one that carried weight and meaning. The people behind her fell silent as they saw it. Some gasped softly. Others lowered their heads. Tom froze. "You don't need to," he began. Clara raised her head, her eyes shining. "You stood where none would," she said. Her voice was steady now, strong with emotion. "You placed yourself between death and my children. You did not flee. You did not trade their lives for your own safety." She pressed her hand to her chest, then reached out and placed it over Tom's heart. The gesture was gentle, careful of his injuries. "To my people," she continued, "this is not an act that can be repaid with words or goods. It is a bond." Tom swallowed. "I just did what I had to," he said. "Anyone would have." Clara shook her head slowly. "No. Not anyone. You chose." She stood and turned, calling Ivy and Noah forward. They stepped out from behind her, their eyes fixed on Tom. Ivy reached for his hand. Noah followed, placing his smaller hand on top of hers. "This human stood alone for you," Clara said softly to them. "Remember that." The twins nodded. Ivy squeezed Tom's fingers. Noah looked up at him with open respect, no fear left in his eyes. Around them the rescue team moved closer. Medics approached, stopping when they saw the scene before them. They waited, sensing the moment was important. Clara faced Tom again. "From this day," she said, "my life and the lives of my children are tied to yours. Where you are welcome, we are welcome. Where you stand, we stand." The words carried across the group. Murmurs followed, low and thoughtful. Some of the settlers looked at Tom differently now. Not as a hired guide. Not even as a protector. As something more. Tom felt overwhelmed. He had never sought honor or bond or meaning beyond the next job. He looked down at the twins, then back at Clara. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. Clara smiled, a small, tired smile filled with warmth. "Then say nothing. Let it be enough that you live." The medic stepped forward then, guiding Tom gently toward a stretcher. His strength finally gave out and he allowed himself to sit. As they worked, cleaning wounds and checking his injuries, he kept his eyes on the twins. They stayed close, watching him with quiet concern. As Tom was lifted and carried toward safety, Clara walked beside him, one hand resting on the edge of the stretcher. She did not let go. The land behind them settled into stillness. The danger had passed, but something lasting had been formed in its place. A bond not written in law or contract, but in choice, sacrifice, and trust. Tom closed his eyes as exhaustion claimed him, knowing that whatever came next, his life would never be the same. Tom woke slowly. Soft light filled the room, warm and steady. It was not the harsh light of a ship or the cold glow of a station hallway. This light felt calm, almost gentle. For a moment, Tom did not remember where he was. His body felt heavy, wrapped in layers of dull pain. Every breath reminded him that he was alive. He opened his eyes. The room was quiet. Smooth walls curved upward, painted in soft colors that shifted slightly with the light. Medical tools rested nearby, humming quietly as they worked. Tom tried to move but his body refused. A low sound escaped his throat. "You're awake." The voice was calm and familiar. Tom turned his head and saw Clara sitting beside him. She looked tired but her eyes were clear. Relief crossed her face when she saw him awake. She stood slowly and stepped closer. "You scared us," she said softly. Tom tried to smile. "Still here?" he replied. She nodded. "Yes. Because you refused to fall." He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the words settle. When he opened them again, Ivy and Noah stood behind Clara. They stepped forward when they saw him looking at them. Ivy waved gently. Noah gave a small nod, serious and proud. Tom's chest tightened. "Hey," he said quietly. They smiled. Days passed after that. Tom lost track of time as his body healed. He learned that the rescue team had driven the beasts far from the area. The caravan reached the valley safely. No lives were lost. Word spread quickly among the settlers and beyond. People came to see him. At first Tom did not understand why. He was only a guide. But the visitors looked at him with respect, some with awe. They asked him questions, thanked him, offered gifts he did not know how to accept. He turned most of them away. He did not want praise. He only wanted quiet. Clara stayed. She visited every day. Sometimes she spoke. Sometimes she simply sat with him in silence. Ivy and Noah came often, bringing small objects they found interesting. A smooth stone. A piece of colored cloth. Simple things. Meaningful things. One day, when Tom was strong enough to sit up on his own, Clara spoke again of the bond. "To my people," she said, "what you did is not forgotten. It cannot be." Tom looked at his hands, still marked with faint scars. "I didn't plan it," he said. "I just couldn't walk away." "That is why it matters," Clara replied. "You chose others over yourself." When Tom finally left the medical shelter, the world felt different. Not because the land had changed, but because the way people looked at him had. He was no longer just Tom the guide. He was spoken of in quiet voices. His name carried weight. The settlers offered him a place among them. Not as hired help, but as family. Clara made the offer clear. "Where we go," she said, "you have a place. With us." Tom hesitated. He had always walked alone. That was easier. Safer. Bonds could break. People could be lost. But when he looked at Ivy and Noah, standing close and watching him with trust, something shifted inside him. "I'll stay," he said. Life settled into a new rhythm. Tom helped build shelters, guide paths, and teach safety to the young. He trained others to read the land, to listen for silence, to respect danger. He did not lead by command, but by example. People followed him because he never asked them to do what he would not do himself. Ivy and Noah followed him everywhere. They asked endless questions. About Earth. About stars. About why humans were the way they were. Tom answered as best he could, using simple words and honest thoughts. "Humans break," he told them once. "But we don't always stop." They remembered that. News of what Tom had done traveled far beyond the valley. Other groups came seeking human guides. Some came simply to see him. To understand what made a human stand alone against impossible odds. Tom did not think of himself as a symbol. But others did. They spoke of humanity differently after that. Not weak. Not reckless. But stubborn. Loyal. Willing to endure pain for others. Willing to stand when retreat was easier. One evening, as the sky darkened and unfamiliar stars filled the air, Tom stood at the edge of the settlement. Clara joined him, watching Ivy and Noah play nearby. "You changed more than your own path," she said. Tom shook his head. "I just did my job." Clara smiled. "No. You showed the galaxy who humans are." Tom watched the stars, feeling the weight of her words. His life had been shaped by quiet choices, by moments where he simply refused to step aside. He had never planned to matter. Yet here he was. No longer just a hired human. He was family. He was protector. He was proof that even one person standing firm could change how an entire world saw a species. Tom took a deep breath and felt something he had not felt in a long time. Belonging. And as the stars shone above him, he knew his journey was far from over, but wherever it led, he would never walk alone again.